Usually when you walk into a doctor's office, there is this really comforting expectation of mechanical precision,
Oh, absolutely.
right? Like if you fall off a ladder and your arm hurts, you get an X-ray. The doctor puts that film up on the light box, points to this jagged white line on a glowing femur, and says, well, there it is. That's the problem.
Yeah, it's incredibly binary. It's either broken or it's not broken.
Exactly. You fix the machine, you put a cast on the arm, and you just move on.
Yeah.
I think we crave that kind of visible, categorized reality.
We do, yeah. I mean, it makes the sheer chaos of having a human body feel a bit more manageable,
Yeah, for sure.
The Newtonian model of the universe, where everything is just separate objects bumping into each other, is very reassuring when you're the one trying to, fix the plumbing.
But then you leave the orthopedic ward. You step into the world of neurodevelopment, or chronic stress, or just the actual living energy of the human nervous system interacting with a crowded room. And suddenly, that X-ray machine is completely useless.
Right. It gives you nothing.
It can't show you the tension in a boardroom. It can't photograph the heaviness of a depressive episode. We are looking at this diagnostic landscape that is entirely invisible to our best medical hardware.
Invisible to artificial hardware, yes.
Which brings us to the core of what we were unpacking today in this deep dive. Because we're looking at a thesis that suggests the reason our machines can't measure these things is simply because our machines are too primitive.
That's the radical claim here, yeah.
But the thesis argues that the only instrument sophisticated enough to measure the reality of human experience is the human body itself.
And we're pulling from a really fascinating collection of treatises today to explore this. Specifically, we're looking at the Codex of Spectral Harmony and Extension 7th of the Prism of Odysseys by Alan Henri Regis Imbert.
Right.
And this culminates in the 2026 frameworks. This material, it basically bridges rigorous biophysics, electromagnetism, and psychology. It proposes an entirely different paradigm for human biology.
So the central mission of this deep dive is to unpack this idea of the human body not as, like, a biological combustion engine that just pumps blood and digests food, but as what the text calls a sonde integral.
An integral probe.
An integral probe. The text is literally arguing that a properly calibrated human being is a suprasensitive, living precision instrument.
Yes.
An instrument that detects, encodes, and transmits data that artificial sensors just cannot capture.
Think about the limitation of an artificial instrument for a second.
Okay.
A mass spectrometer, or an EEG machine, it only measures what its engineers explicitly programmed it to measure, right?
Right, it has a set parameter.
Exactly. It looks for a specific variable within a very specific frequency band, so it is inherently closed off to the rest of the universe.
So an artificial instrument only measures the known.
Yes.
But this text is saying that an integral probe, meaning us, basically measures what doesn't even have a name yet.
It measures the unnameable, the qualitative shifts in the field.
Wow. Okay, so today we are going to explore how the brain functions as a physical antenna, how our biology actually alters the propagation medium of reality around us, and how this invisible signal we broadcast is put to the ultimate test when we collide with another human being.
It's a massive journey.
It really is. We're getting into some heavy quantum concepts, biophysics, and some intense terminology today. But if you are sitting at your desk right now or driving your car, I want you to keep this grounded in your own physical body.
Because it's happening right now.
Right. Every concept we cover is happening inside your cellular structure at this exact second. But I want to start by challenging this probe terminology, actually.
Feel for it.
When I hear probe, I picture a piece of metal you shove into the soil to check moisture, or like a satellite launched into orbit.
Right, a mechanical device.
Yeah, it implies a tool that I hold, not something that I am.
Well, the author uses the term sonde integrale incredibly deliberately to break that exact habit of separating the observer from the observation.
Okay, how so?
In this framework, you are not a brain driving a meat vehicle. The integral probe is defined as a total multi-sensory observational posture.
A posture.
Yes. It integrates your acoustic processing, your optical processing, your proprioception, which is your body's awareness of where it is in space, and your relational dimensions into a single unified sensory array.
Okay, I'm trying to picture the sheer scale of the hardware we're talking about here. If we were an instrument, how many individual sensors make up this array? Just give me a sense of the biological substrate.
Let's just look at the neurological baseline for a second. The average human brain contains roughly 86 billion neurons.
86 billion.
Yeah. And each of those neurons can form thousands of connections, which results in a network of an estimated 100 trillion synapses.
100 trillion.
Yeah.
I can't even wrap my head around that number.
It is a computational density that completely defies human imagination. But, and this is where the text gets really interesting, the text argues that the true sensitivity of the integral probe doesn't actually come from the electricity firing across those synapses.
Wait, really? Because we always think of the brain as electrical.
Right. But the secret lies in the medium that all those neurons are floating in. At a microscopic level, your brain is roughly 77 to 78% water.
Okay, but just normal water, like what comes out of a tap.
No. And this is a crucial distinction in biophysics. The text refers to this as structured water or interfacial water.
Interfacial water.
Yeah. In the biological sciences, particularly in the research pioneered by scientists studying cellular hydration, water inside a cell doesn't behave like liquid water in a glass.
How is it different?
Well, when water is constrained within the incredibly tight protein-packed spaces of a cell, its molecules align. It forms a crystalline-like phase, sometimes called the fourth phase of water.
A fourth phase, like not solid, liquid, or gas.
Exactly. In this state, water becomes highly conductive to information and electromagnetic frequencies.
I need to pause here because this is where the science can easily slip into science fiction. You know,
Oh, absolutely. It's a fine line.
the text bridges a lot of domains, and I want to make sure we know exactly what is established science and where the author is taking a massive theoretical leap. Where are the boundaries here?
Right. We absolutely must be epistemically rigorous here. Let's draw the lines.
Please.
On one side, we have solidly documented biophysics. The existence of structured water in cells is an active, accepted area of study. The fact that the brain produces measurable electromagnetic oscillations, which we read with EEGs, is undisputed fact.
Okay.
We also know that living cells emit ultra-weak photon emissions, or biophotons. That is established chemistry and physics.
That's the bedrock.
Ah.
So we are electrical, light-emitting, water-based organisms.
Yes. Then we step into the active, debated research. The text relies heavily on quantum coherence in biology.
Which means what exactly?
Well, for a long time, physicists thought quantum effects like entanglement could only happen in highly controlled, freezing cold laboratory vacuums.
Like in a quantum computer.
Right. But fields like quantum biology are currently investigating how phenomena like avian navigation, how birds use magnetic fields to migrate, or even photosynthesis might actually rely on quantum coherence happening in warm, messy, biological environments.
Wow. Okay, so that's the bleeding edge of current science. But then there's the speculative leap. Because I was reading through the text, and it suddenly mentions tachons as a mechanism for transcosmic information propagation.
Yes, the Taschon hypothesis.
Tachons are theoretical particles that travel faster than light. That is pure theoretical physics. They've never been observed. So how can the author base a biological framework on a particle that might not even exist?
It is a very valid critique. And to be fair, the text itself positions the Taschon discussion at the speculative edge of the framework.
Okay, so it's not the whole foundation.
No. The author is searching for a vocabulary to describe instantaneous, non-local information transfer, which is a phenomenon reported in various states of human connection, but it lacks a classical mechanical explanation.
Right, like when you just know someone is staring at you, or you get a bad feeling about a room instantly.
Exactly. The core of the integral probe thesis, however, does not actually require faster-than-light particles to function.
Oh, it doesn't.
No. The primary mechanism relies on that structured water acting as a highly sensitive, localized, conductive medium for electromagnetic and photonic information.
Okay, that feels much more grounded. So if I am this impossibly advanced water-based atmospheric sensor, what exactly is the frequency that my personal antenna is tuned to? Like, if I'm a radio, what station am I playing?
The text introduces the concept of the resonance souche, the source resonance.
Source resonance. I love that phrase. It sounds like a biological fingerprint.
It functions exactly like one. Source resonance is the fundamental base state frequency of a living system.
So it's like my default setting.
Yes. Imagine a biological tuning fork. It is the pure, unadulterated signal of what your body wants to be before any external stress, before environmental noise, before trauma or illness distorts it.
Wow.
If homeostasis is the chemical balance of the body, source resonance is the vibrational and electromagnetic balance.
But how does a tuning fork made of flesh and water actually vibrate? I mean, what is the literal physics behind this source resonance?
The text anchors this in the phenomenon of magnetic resonance, leaning heavily on a principle called the Larmor frequency.
The Larmor frequency. Okay, you're going to have to unpack that for me.
Let's look at a hydrogen atom. A hydrogen atom is essentially a single proton.
Right.
Since you are mostly water, you are essentially a walking ocean of hydrogen protons. Now, protons have a quantum property called spin, and they act like tiny bar magnets.
Okay, I'm with you. Little magnets.
Under normal conditions, these millions of tiny magnets in your body are pointing in completely random directions, canceling each other out. But when you apply a strong, uniform magnetic field to them, they snap into alignment.
Like compass needles all suddenly pointing north.
Precisely. And they don't just sit still, they begin to wobble around the axis of that magnetic field.
Wobble.
Yeah, that wobble is called precession. Think of a spinning top that starts to lose momentum and wobbles before it falls.
Oh, okay. I can visualize that.
The speed of that wobble is mathematically exact, and it is determined by the strength of the magnetic field. That specific frequency of wobbling is the Larmor frequency.
Wait a second. This is how an MRI machine works, isn't it? Magnetic resonance imaging?
It is the exact physics of an MRI. A standard clinical MRI uses a 1.5 Tesla magnetic field. Under that specific magnetic pressure, the hydrogen protons in your body wobble at exactly 64 megahertz.
64 megahertz.
Yes. The machine then fires a radio frequency pulse into your body at that exact 64 megahertz frequency.
And because it's a perfect match, the protons absorb the energy.
They absorb the photons, they flip their alignment, and then when the radio pulse stops, they relax back to their original state.
And that relaxation does what?
As they relax, they emit an electromagnetic echo. The MRI machine reads that echo and translates it into a high-resolution image of your brain or your knee.
Okay, I follow the physics. But an MRI is a massive, supercooled machine. How does this relate to my brain just sitting here in my skull?
The text proposes a really fascinating extrapolation here. It argues that if a mechanical device can utilize perfect frequency resonance to read the electromagnetic echoes of our tissues, why wouldn't our own neurobiology have evolved to do the exact same thing?
Oh, wow.
We are constantly bathed in magnetic fields, the Earth's geomagnetic field, the electromagnetic fields generated by the hearts and brains of the people sitting next to us.
Right, we're swimming in it.
Exactly. The author posits that our structured water and cellular architecture are constantly precessing, absorbing, and emitting subtle frequency echoes. We are literally reading the room at a quantum level.
Which brings us back to those biophotons you mentioned earlier. We aren't just emitting radio frequencies, we are literally emitting light.
Ultra-weak photon emissions, yes. Biological cells communicate using light, and the text introduces a structural mechanism for this. It suggests that these biophotons travel along the myelin sheaths in your brain.
Myelin is the fatty insulation wrapped around our nerve axons, right? Like it's supposed to speed up electrical signals.
That is the classical biological view. But this framework suggests the myelin sheath serves a dual purpose. Because of its lipid structure and crystalline properties, the text argues that myelin acts as biological fiber optics.
Fiber optics inside the brain.
Yes. While the electrical action potential chugs along the nerve at a relatively slow speed, a parallel network of photonic quantum information is flashing through the body at the speed of light.
So we have this dual-layered system. Slow electricity for basic motor function, and instantaneous fiber optic light for this high-level integral probe sensing.
That's the thesis.
That completely changes how we view neurological differences. Because the text takes this concept and applies it to neurodivergence, specifically autism or TSA. And it frames it in a way I have genuinely never heard before.
It is arguably one of the most profound paradigm shifts in the entire corpus.
Yeah.
In classical clinical diagnostics, autism is almost universally framed through a lens of deficit. It is categorized as a disorder, a failure of typical sensory gating, a breakdown in social processing.
Right, it's treated as something that's broken. But the text uses an electronics term to describe the autistic profile. It calls it a high impedance configuration. What does high impedance actually mean in physics?
In electrical engineering, if you want to measure a very delicate circuit without draining its power or altering its behavior, you use a voltmeter with high impedance.
Well,
It means the measuring instrument draws almost zero current from the source. It is incredibly sensitive, allowing it to take a pure, undistorted reading of the environment.
wait, so the text is saying that the autistic brain isn't a broken instrument. It's an ultra-sensitive, high-resolution measuring device.
It frames the autistic neurology as a biological antenna capable of perceiving microfluctuations in the electromagnetic and spectral environment.
That is amazing.
Think about a typical neuronormative brain. It is heavily filtered. It actively blocks out the hum of the fluorescent lights, the subtle electromagnetic stress of the person sitting across the table, the ambient frequency of the room.
Right. It dumbs down the data so we can just get through the grocery store without collapsing.
Exactly. It prioritizes social execution and mechanical efficiency over raw data. But the high-impedance brain receives the raw, unfiltered data stream.
Wow.
The text affords immense dignity to this configuration. It suggests that sensory overload, a meltdown in a crowded space, isn't a failure of the brain. It is the logical consequence of a precision instrument capturing too much accurate data.
The instrument isn't broken. It is simply too sensitive for the chaotic noise of the modern world.
Perfectly said.
That reframes everything. Because if pathology isn't a broken gear in a machine, what is illness in this model?
Illness is framed as dissonance. It is an error in the modulation of this light and information flow. Yes. If your body is a symphony orchestra, illness isn't a snapped violin string. It's the entire string section playing slightly off-tempo and out of tune.
Ah, so the role of medicine, or a practitioner, isn't just to prescribe a chemical hammer to silence the string section.
No, it is to help the organism retune to its original source resonance.
Okay, I am firmly grasping the internal biology now. I am a water-based fiber optic antenna tuned to a specific source resonance. But if I am just sitting in a chair, how does my internal frequency actually project outward? I mean, I'm not shooting laser beams out of my eyes. How does this internal state alter the physical room I am in?
That transition is the core of Extension IX, which lays the foundational axiom for the entire final treatise.
Okay, what's the axiom?
The text states that a sufficiently trained brain, operating with intense intention, becomes part of the very substance through which information propagates.
I need to stop you there because that sounds a bit like mystical poetry, and we promise to keep this grounded in physics. What does it mean to become part of the substance? I am me, and the air around me is the air.
Let's use an analogy.
Please.
The Newtonian view of reality is like a theatrical play. You and I are the actors, we walk around, we say our lines, we interact. But the stage itself, the wooden floorboards, the painted backdrop, the lighting rigging is completely separate from us.
Right. Space is just an empty box that holds my body.
The text argues that space is not an empty box. The field is not the background. The field is the dynamic texture of what can happen.
The texture of what can happen.
Yes. Your biological resonance and your mental intention are not just moving through the box, they are actively weaving the wooden floorboards and painting the backdrop in real time. You are continuously altering the probability and the texture of the environment you occupy.
That is a massive leap. Is the author just speaking metaphorically here, or is there a proposed mechanism?
The author attempts to formalize this mechanism with a mathematical framework called the auction equation. It is an attempt to quantify how human intention physically shapes a vectorized field.
The action equation. Okay, I have written down here, action equals m times c times f, and all of that is modulated by pi.
Yes, that's it.
Let's break this down variable by variable, because if you're listening at your desk right now, you want to know how this math actually applies to your Tuesday afternoon? Let's start with m.
M stands for the matrix, or humidance. This circles back to the biological substrate we discussed earlier, the structured water.
Okay.
M represents the physical readiness, the purity, and the conductivity of the biological water in the operator's body.
So is this literally just about drinking enough water? Am I a better reality weaver if I drink 8 glasses a day?
Well, it goes far deeper than basic hydration, though that is the baseline. Humidance refers to the structural integrity of the cellular environment.
What degrades that integrity?
If your internal environment is polluted by chronic systemic inflammation, if your cortisol levels are constantly spiked from stress, if your diet degrades your cellular resting potential, your M value drops.
And what happens to the water?
The water loses its crystalline structure. It becomes a sluggish, chaotic medium, a poor conductor.
So M is the physical health of my internal antenna. If my M is low, the signal I'm trying to broadcast gets scrambled before it even leaves my body.
Precisely. You cannot project coherence from a substrate of chaos.
Makes sense. Now let's look at C. C stands for the atmospheric pentad, or the field.
Right.
If M is the internal environment, is C the external environment?
Yes. C is the 3D geometric confinement of the space you are in. It is the physical and energetic architecture of the room.
Architecture, like the shape of the walls.
Yes. Think about the acoustic difference between singing in a small, tiled bathroom versus singing in an open field.
Oh, okay. The bathroom echoes.
The bathroom provides a geometric confinement that focuses and amplifies the sound waves, bouncing them back. The open field allows the energy to scatter aimlessly into the void.
So the physical room I'm sitting in dictates how my intention propagates.
The text suggests that a skilled operator, someone aware of their integral probe, reads the geometry of a space. They understand how the physical constraints of a boardroom, the lighting, the positioning of the chairs, either amplify or scatter the electromagnetic and acoustic energy of the people in it.
Okay, so M is my cellular water, C is the architecture of the room. What is F?
F stands for conference, or frequency, and conference is a neologism in the text, blending the words confluence and coherence.
Confluence meaning things flowing together, and coherence meaning structural stability.
Exactly. F represents the reciprocal spectral tuning between the operator and the target. It is the harmonic match.
Give me an example of that.
If you are trying to transmit a complex, nuanced idea to someone who is currently in a state of high adrenaline panic, their frequency is erratic. If your F value is unmatched, your signal will just bounce off their static.
Right, they literally can't hear you.
Conference is the ability to adjust your transmission to find the exact harmonic entry point that the other person's nervous system can actually receive without distortion.
It's like trying to tune a radio dial to catch a faint station through the static.
And finally, we have pi.
Not the mathematical constant 3.14, right?
No, the Greek letter representing the pressure of intention.
The pressure of intention. This sounds like the actual engine of the equation.
It is the kinetic motor. M, C, and F are just the setup. Pi is the actual force of human will, and they also breaks pi down into three specific subjectors: P sub P, M sub P, and L sub P.
Okay, break those down for me. What is P sub P?
P sub P is the range. It asks, how far into the field can you maintain your coherence? Can you hold your calm intention just within your own body, or can you extend that stable electromagnetic field to encompass the person sitting across from you?
Or the whole room.
Exactly. Can you encompass the whole room?
In M sub P.
M sub P is the magnitude, the raw amplitude of the intention.
How strong it is.
Yes. And the text audaciously links this magnitude to the physical breaking of hydrogen bonds in the water structure of the environment. It suggests a high magnitude intention exerts actual biophysical force.
That is wild. And lastly, L sub P.
L sub P is latency. It is the time delay between the formation of the intention and its physical manifestation in the field.
So how fast it happens.
Right. A highly tuned system has low latency. The shift in reality happens almost concurrently with the shift in intention. A system bogged down by doubt or poor humidity has high latency. The signal is sluggish.
If we put all this together, it completely dismantles the law of attraction self-help trope, where you just wish for a new car really hard and it appears.
Oh, completely.
Projecting intention in this text isn't about wishing. It is a calculated, exhausting biophysical event. It relies on your cellular hydration, the physical geometry of the room, harmonic tuning with the people around you, and an intense, sustained cognitive pressure.
It is the ultimate fusion of mind, biology, and physics, which inevitably raises a crucial question. If a human being can act as this reality-weaving loom, who is the operator driving the machine?
The text gives this operator a title, actually, the frequential archon, or the archon frequential con.
The term archon historically means a ruler, a magistrate, or a structuring principle. But the text is careful to distinguish this from authoritarian control.
Right. It's not about dominating people.
No. The frequential archon does not force reality through violence or coercion. They order chaos through attention and tuning. They are the universal architect of intentional biophysics.
And an architect needs tools. The text outlines two primary disciplines that this archon uses to modulate the field. The first is called phonancy, which sounds like it relates to phonetics or sound.
Phonancy is modulation via sound and vibration. But again, we must strip away the New Age connotations of good vibes.
Please do.
The text frames sound as a literal mechanical force invoking the Lorentz force.
Okay, I remember the Lorentz force from high school physics, but remind me how it applies to a human voice.
In physics, the Lorentz force describes the force exerted on a charged particle as it moves through an electromagnetic field. Now remember that your body is full of water, and that water is full of charged ions, sodium, potassium, calcium floating in your interstitial fluids.
The fluids between my cells.
Yes. Sound is a mechanical wave. It is physical pressure moving through a medium.
Right.
The text suggests that the acoustic vibration of a human voice, the specific rhythm, the cadence, the deep resonance of speech creates mechanical pressure that propagates through the interstitial fluids of the listener's body.
And what does that pressure do?
Through piezoelectric effects in the bone and fascia, this mechanical pressure translates into electromagnetic shifts, physically realigning the charged protons in their cells.
That is mind-blowing. So when I speak to someone, I am not just transferring abstract ideas into their ears. The physical sound waves of my voice are acting as a mechanical force, literally restructuring the fluids inside their body.
According to the biophysics of phonancy, yes. You are altering the probability density of their cellular structure. This is why a panicked, screeching voice instantly triggers anxiety in your gut, while a deep, rhythmic, calm voice can literally lower your heart rate.
It's a biophysical intervention.
It is.
And the second tool is chromancy. If phonancy is sound, chromancy must be light.
Chromancy is the modulation of the field via light, specifically the management of the biophotons we discussed earlier. It is about stabilizing the electromagnetic fields of the body by clarifying its internal luminescence.
The text mentions a highly specific protocol for achieving this stabilization, called the ALAN protocol.
ALAN stands for the Alignment of Liaisons of Neuronal Assets. It is a 12-step framework designed to anchor high-level frequency into actual biological tissue.
So taking an abstract state and making it physical.
Exactly. It's about taking an ephemeral state of mind and locking it into the nervous system as a permanent physical asset.
Two of those steps, ALAN and ALANR, seem to focus obsessively on a very specific mathematical value, -70 millivolts. What is the significance of that number?
-70 millivolts is the exact resting potential of a healthy human neuron.
The resting potential, meaning the electrical charge inside the cell compared to the outside when it's not firing?
Correct. The cell maintains this electrical tension by constantly pumping sodium out and pulling potassium in. It is like pulling back the string of a bow and holding it there.
Okay, I see.
That tension, that -70 millivolts, is required for the neuron to fire a clean, powerful signal when needed.
So what happens if we lose that resting potential?
If you are subjected to chronic stress, poor nutrition, or constant sensory overload, the cell membrane degrades. The voltage creeps up to -60 or -50 millivolts.
This boost stream goes slack.
Exactly. When that happens, the neuron misfires. It can't receive complex signals, and it can't store new information. ALANR is a protocol for preserving this exact baseline, ensuring the biological hardware is primed to receive the BioGesil.
BioGesil, biological software.
Yes. The text introduces BioGesil as a software package, a new pattern of behavior, a new paradigm of thought that is transmitted entirely through contact with a coherent signal. And it is downloaded directly into the neural architecture, provided the cells are at that healthy -70 millivolts.
Wow. There is another very specific number that keeps reappearing in the text regarding this stabilization, the number 34.
The recurring 34 is fascinating. The author uses it as a marker of optimal temporal phase coherence. But mathematically, it ties perfectly to cellular biology, specifically the mitochondria.
The powerhouse of the cell, the thing that makes our energy.
Under ideal, perfectly oxygenated, non-stressed conditions, the complete cellular respiration of one single glucose molecule yields approximately 34 molecules of ATP.
ATP is the basic energy currency of life.
Yes. The text seems to use the number 34 as a literal and symbolic metric of a system operating at its absolute peak harmonic efficiency, free from the chaotic dissonance of anaerobic stress.
But maintaining that level of perfection, managing the action equation, holding a -70 millivolt resting potential, operating at a perfect 34 ATP yield that sounds utterly exhausting. One person can't possibly maintain that field of coherence alone without burning out.
The author totally agrees, which is why the architecture expands into group dynamics, introducing the concept of the triplet of oscillators.
Okay, the triplet of oscillators.
It's a network of 3 archetypal roles required to sustain a high-level frequency field.
The text names them Linda, Alan, and Jimmy, which honestly sounds like an indie rock band. What did these 3 roles actually do?
Linda represents space, or the antenna. This is the highly sensitive receptor. The Linda archetype captures the ultra-weak signals, the subtle shifts in the room's mood. But because the sensitivity is so high, Linda is prone to overload.
So Linda needs a processor.
Which is the Alan archetype. Alan represents time, or the modulation, Alan takes the raw, overwhelming data captured by Linda and translates it. Alan structures the signal, making it legible and actionable.
Okay, so we have the antenna and the processor. What does Jimmy do?
Jimmy is geometry, the anchor. Jimmy provides the low-frequency stabilization.
The anchor.
Yeah. If you think of this as an electrical circuit, Linda is the sensitive receiver, Alan is the microchip processor, and Jimmy is the massive, heavy copper ground wire.
Right, to stop it from shorting out.
Exactly. Without Jimmy, the excess energy captured by Linda and processed by Alan would simply fry the circuit. Jimmy absorbs the shock.
I can immediately map this onto a boardroom or a family dynamic,
Oh, it's incredibly common.
You always have the sensitive one who reads the subtext, the analytical one who tries to solve it, and the grounded one who just holds the space so everyone doesn't lose their minds.
It is a perfect map of healthy group coherence.
So we have the tools to build coherence. But let's be real, the world is largely chaotic. The text introduces a specific tactic for dealing with an environment that is deeply dissonant, angry, or looping in a toxic pattern. It's called the saisine de surprise, the surprise seizure.
This is a masterclass in the practical application of phonancy and the vectorized field. Imagine you are in a heated argument. The other person is shouting, their cortisol is spiked, their frequency is rigid and aggressive.
Okay.
The instinct is to fight back, right? To raise your own voice to match their magnitude.
But fighting dissonance just creates more friction. It degrades your own humidity.
Exactly. You lose your source resonance. The Archon does not fight the dissonance. They use a surprise seizure. This is the introduction of a sudden, calculated disruption that completely breaks the predictive loop of the other person's brain.
What does a surprise seizure actually look like in practice, though?
It could be a sudden, profound physical silence where a reaction was expected. It could be dropping a book on the table. It could be asking an entirely unexpected, intensely specific but calm question that has nothing to do with the argument.
Like what?
Like stopping mid-argument and saying, "Did you notice the fractal pattern on this coffee cup?"
Just totally out of left field. It forces a cognitive reboot.
Exactly. The brain is a prediction machine. When the predicted pattern of the argument is suddenly shattered by a non sequitur or a profound silence, a momentary cognitive void opens up.
And physics dictates that nature abhors a vacuum.
Exactly. In that split second of void, the chaotic environment is forced to instantly realign to the most stable, grounded frequency available in the room. If you are holding your source resonance, the room resets to you.
You don't push harder on a skipping record needle. You just gently lift it and set it down in a new groove.
You redefine the baseline of the field without firing a single shot.
Wow. Okay. We have mapped the entire internal universe here. The integral probe, the action equation, phonancy, the triplet, the surprise seizure. All of this is about how the operator calibrates their own signal.
Right.
But Extension 7, the culmination of this entire 2026 framework, states that all of this internal work is merely preparation for the ultimate decisive test.
The crucible of the entire thesis.
The text lays down an absolute axiom. A signal only proves its coherence upon contact with the other.
It is a profound philosophical stance. If you meditate on a mountaintop for 10 years and achieve perfect internal resonance, but you lose your temper the moment you walk into a grocery store and someone bumps your cart, your signal was an illusion.
Yeah.
A signal that only exists in isolation is not a signal. It is an echo. The only true test of a frequency's structural integrity is what happens when it collides with a different, perhaps chaotic, human frequency.
The text breaks this collision down into a very specific, four-step chronological sequence. The encounter, the relationship, the contact, and the transmission.
Yes.
Let's walk through this FGNM interpersonal progression. Step 1 is the encounter.
The encounter is the initial measurement. It is the moment two integral probes enter each other's vectorized fields. Their structured waters and electromagnetic fields begin to read the echoes of the other.
Then comes step 2, the relationship.
The relationship is the friction. It is the negotiation of boundaries. It is where most human interactions get stuck because this is where the egos and the inherited dissonances clash.
The goal here is not to merge, right?
Yeah.
The text is very clear about that. We often think the pinnacle of empathy is feeling exactly what the other person feels. But if I merge with a panicked person, now there are just two panicked people in the room.
Exactly. The text argues fiercely against dissolving into the other. The goal is step 3, the contact. And contact is defined by that word we explored earlier, conference, confluence, and coherence. Two distinct signals meeting without losing their individual integrity.
Let's use a musical analogy to really land this for you listening. Imagine a cello and a flute.
Okay.
If the cello player wants to harmonize with the flute, they don't start trying to play in the high-pitched register of the flute. That would sound terrible.
Right, they lose their own nature.
Exactly. The cello maintains its deep resonance and the flute maintains its high clarity. But when they play perfectly in key together, the sound waves interact in the air through constructive interference.
Producing a harmonic overtone.
Yes, a brand new sound that literally did not exist in the cello and did not exist in the flute. It is a third entity born entirely of the contact between two stable, uncompromised structures. That is inference.
And it is incredibly difficult to achieve, particularly in a hostile environment. The text provides a mantra, a guiding principle for the frequentitial archon trying to navigate difficult relationship friction to reach contact.
What's the mantra?
The principle is, I define my frequency, their noise does not define my presence.
I want you to really hear that. Their noise does not define my presence. It is the ultimate declaration of biophysical boundaries.
Yeah.
You are refusing to let the chaotic magnitude of a room degrade the negative 70 millivolt resting potential of your cells.
By maintaining your presence, you act as the Jimmy archetype. You become the anchor for the room, offering an invitation, not a demand for the other person's frequency to ground itself.
And when that harmonic overtone is achieved, when contact is made, it unlocks the final step of the sequence. Step 4, transmission. What is actually happening in this final step?
This is where the biological software, the BioGesil, is downloaded. But the text does not use the word download. It uses a newly coined French term, fondature.
Fondature, it sounds heavy. Permanent.
It is a fusion of two concepts. Foundation, the immovable bedrock upon which a structure is built, and a term related to structural soldering or ribbing, the active binding force that permanently fuses a frame together.
So it's active.
Right. Fondature is not a passive transfer of information. It is an active, structural upgrade of the other person's biological and electromagnetic architecture.
So when I transmit this coherent signal, I am leaving a physical trace in the other person's tissue.
You are leaving a legacy. The text applies this act of fondature directly to the concept of deep human healing, framing it around the term remedia.
Healing what, exactly?
Healing the deepest, most complex terrain a human being possesses, their epigenetic memory. We know from epigenetics that trauma, famine, and chronic stress experienced by our grandparents can physically alter the methylation of our DNA. We inherit the biochemical markers of their dissonance.
We carry the echoes of our ancestors' panics in our own structured water.
Exactly. The author suggests that many people spend their entire lives vibrating at a frequency that isn't even theirs. It is inherited noise. The ultimate purpose of transmission, of fondature, is to provide a frequency field so stable and so pure that it acts as an intervention.
So by holding my source resonance in the presence of someone else, I am creating a localized pocket of physics where their cells finally feel safe enough to stop playing their grandfather's trauma loop.
You provide the coherence necessary for them to finally locate and tune into their own unique source resonance, perhaps for the very first time. You liberate them from the static of the past.
That is staggering. It completely redefines the stakes of a simple conversation over a cup of coffee. We are not just exchanging data. We are engaging in a shared biophysics of intention. Every interaction is an opportunity for biological fondature.
The act of truly seeing someone, of holding your frequency without judgment and without dissolving into their chaos, is framed as the highest form of biological and spiritual intervention a human being can perform.
Wow. We have covered an immense amount of ground today. We started by discarding the X-ray machine, shifting our view of the human body from a mechanical engine to a supersensitive integral probe.
We examined the crystalline structure of interfacial water, the Larmor frequency, and how our myelin acts as biological fiber optics for biophotons.
We unpacked the action equation, learning how our internal humidience and our pressure of intention physically vector the field around us, moving away from Newtonian stage acting into quantum reality weaving.
We learned the tools of the architect, the Lorentz force of Financy, the negative 70 millivolt preservation of the ALAM protocol, and the circuit-breaking power of the surprise seizure.
And we followed the signal to its ultimate crucible, the collision with the other, moving through encounter and relationship, refusing to let their noise define our presence, to achieve the harmonic overtone of contact, ultimately allowing for the transmission, the fondature, the permanent epigenetic upgrading of a fellow human being.
It is a profound, unified theory of what it means to be alive and responsible in a shared space.
So we're going to leave you with a lingering thought, something to mull over as you step away from this deep dive and back into your life. The sources we've explored today argue that just by maintaining a pure, stable frequency, your own source resonance, you mechanically force the dissonant systems around you to realign. If that is biophysically true, consider the physical spaces you move through every single day. The conference room at your office, the driver's seat of your car, the kitchen in your home. What kind of invisible electromagnetic fondature are you secretly building in the cellular structures of the people in those rooms right now, just by sitting there and breathing?